Great. Well, hello and welcome everybody to the Bread and Butter Things social impact launch for our report of 2020. I'm going to briefly introduce you to everybody attending, and thank you everybody that have come along today. So we've got Kate from Kellogg's. Kate Prince is the head of CSR for Kellogg's. Ghalib Khan from PwC. Pip from our community, ICL West Community Centre, and last but not least, Nina Warhurst from BBC Breakfast. And I'm going to hand over to Nina to let her be Master of Ceremonies.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Excuse me if I'm a bit bleary-eyed. I've been up since 4 o'clock. But thank you for giving up a chunk of your day, your lunch hour, or whatever it is, for joining us today. It's a pleasure for me to be semi-hosting and linking between our guests. And I said yes when I was invited to do this because the Bread and Butter Thing is one of those organisations that really stands out to me. You know, I come across dozens of them every year when we're trying to find case studies and look at various charity organisations. And to me, it's because it's one of those places that just makes sense. You know, there are lots of people out there who need a helping hand rather than a handout. There are lots of organisations who want to help. There's too much food going to waste that isn't being redistributed, and lots of people who want to offer their support in the community and don't know how. And to me, it's a perfect combination of all those things, which is why I'm happy to be helping out today. So let's put that then to our first guest, who is Kate Prince, head of CSR at Kellogg's. Do you want to just quickly explain what that means, but also why it was important for you to become involved in the Bread and Butter Thing?
Yeah, of course. So explain what head of CSR means.
Yes.
So corporate social responsibility. So really, it's just all about, you know, how Kellogg's can be as good a corporate citizen as possible. And we have a global hunger relief program that we've been focused on since 2012. And as part of that, we aim to donate as much of our surplus food as possible. So we started working with food charities back in 2010 and donating our food. And with the Bread and Butter Thing in particular, we started working with the guys in 2018. So, you know, as an ambient food manufacturer, our products have a long shelf life. So, you know, 12 months or more. So we're lucky in one sense that we don't have too much surplus, as we have a long time to be able to sell our products. But we do have 2 factories in the UK, in Manchester and Wrexham, and you know, there are lots of reasons why food might become surplus. One of the main ones is that it becomes damaged, you know, in transportation, or a customer might return it, as in a retailer might return it. And in those, you know, instances, we want to make sure that we do the right thing and we donate that food to charity and to people that really do need it, because the alternative before we did this was that it would become animal feed, which is not a great option in our view.
And you have a particular passion, obviously, for breakfast, as do I. And talk me through why breakfast is so important and why you're trying to engage in breakfast clubs, for example, in schools, and making sure that more kids have access to a decent start in the day.
Well, you know, yourself, I don't know what time you had breakfast this morning, Nina, but I'm imagining it's very early. I can't do anything, and my kids can't do anything without having had breakfast first, you know. I can't concentrate, and the kids certainly can't without a couple of bowls of cereal. So Kellogg's has been supporting breakfast clubs in schools for the last 22 years. So since 1998, since they first sort of started, schools started running them. And you know, whether it's in school or at home, homeschool, as we've all been quite used to over the last year, you can all see the difference it makes. And I think it's just so important, and it's so great to hear from, you know, Mark and the guys at the Bread and Butter Thing, that Kellogg's is such a and our cereal is such a a well-received item, because really without it, your child's potential, and as parents and as people, we can't achieve as much without sort of having some sort of food in our tummies, I think. So it's really important to us as a company to support that.
I can definitely vouch for that. I'm very grumpy without any breakfast. And finally, I'm just interested to know, how easy is it when you have a product like that that's so valuable and that could be going to waste or ending up as animal feed? It's probably harder than it looks to disseminate it in a way that is going to be reliable and ethical and done properly.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, when we started looking at this, 11 years ago, I think at the time a lot food companies weren't donating food because they were more concerned about the safety and where it was going to end up and that kind of thing. But the processes that are in place now are second to none, really. And while it does take a shift in mindset and a shift in culture to get those changes in place, because what was easy for us as a company was to carry on donating it and selling it off for animal feed. So we would actually get income for that food. So having to sort of influence senior people in the business to say, we're going to go from getting an income and with a process that's all kind of set up and easy, we're going to shift that and we're going to donate it to people and to organisations like the Bread and Butter thing, which will actually kind of
increase risk in a way.
Increase risk, and instead of getting that income as well, so we'll lose that income, and we have to organise the transportation and we have to put resource into that. But ultimately, it's the right thing to do, because we don't want to be feeding pigs. We want to be feeding people. It's not waste. It's really good food, and we need to make sure that really good food goes to people that need it.
Thank you so much, Kate. Let's talk to Pip then, because you run the Sale West Community Hub. And as Kate was saying there, food better going to people than pigs. How much of a difference does it make to the people who come to your hub?
Amazing. People can afford shopping, which they might not normally be able to afford.
It sounds so simple, doesn't it?
Yeah. Encouraging people to eat more healthily and to cook at home as well, because of the ingredients you get in the bags. We probably support between 50 and 60 families a week that come to the community centre. They're queuing up for an hour before waiting. We've also got lots of volunteers that come and help to pack the bags, and some of them have actually said it's helping with their mental health. Obviously, people have been on furlough or been made redundant. So it's getting them out, keeping them busy. They're interacting with other people, obviously social distanced with masks on. But yeah, it is really helpful.
And is there any such thing as a typical person who walks through the door, or has that just been completely thrown in the air by recent events?
You get people from not just off the Sale West estate, from some of the affluent areas that are around the estate as well. So it's helping all people from all different walks of life.
And how much does it mean to have it as a physical space that people go to?
Well, at the moment, we're doing it from the side of the building because the community centre's closed. But you see people in the queue. It's a bit of a social thing as well, because they're all having a chat about things. We also run the food bank from the centre. So if there is anything left at the end, we're distributing that out with our food bank parcels. Because I'm not sure if you're aware, but food banks are all very long life, dried food. So been putting a bit of fresh food in with the food bank parcels as well.
If there's anybody watching who doesn't necessarily know how an affordable food service works and how they could engage somebody they know, just talk us through it.
So they could contact ourselves. We let them know how to register, explain how it all works, what size packages you can get depending on family size or if you're a single person. And you don't have to go every week. You just go as and when you think you need to sign up. But most of the customers that come to Sale West are there every single week.
And what criteria do you ask for?
There isn't really any criteria, would you say, Mark? It's for anyone.
No, we don't tend to look for criteria for the individuals. People who are struggling to get by already know and are really quite fed up of having to demonstrate that actually they're in need. So we kind of do research around looking for the areas that need help and support rather than the individuals, and then build on the community resilience space around that rather than just judging individuals.
And how important is it, Pip, that people don't feel judged, that they feel like it's okay to ask for help?
It's very important. We've been running one of the main response hubs throughout the pandemic, and people do come through to us and say, oh, I feel embarrassed, but we just make it clear to them, don't feel like that.
Yeah.
Nothing to be ashamed of. There's a lot of people in the same situation at the moment, and things like the bread and butter thing are there to help people get by. So food's affordable, you can feed your families healthy food as well. So,
and none of us really know what's around the corner, do we? And thank you so much. It sounds like you're doing brilliant work. Now, Ghalib, can we bring you in at this point? And I'm curious to know, from your perspective, as a business journalist, what is in it for you? Because there's always something.
Honestly, I think this is a perfect example of dispelling that myth, because, you know, our most valuable resource as an organization is the people who work there. That's what we, you know, charge out to our clients. They bring all of the value to our firm. And when we, at the start of April, once, you know, other organizations had furloughed people and our organization had taken the decision that come what may, everyone would, you know, retain their jobs. There were a number of people who had surplus hours, and, you know, the organization sort of looked at itself and said, well, what can we do to help? And that a relationship that we had with the council, who put up an emergency food response program, sort of was the precursor to our relationship with the bread and butter thing. Just hundreds of people from PwC signed up and said, look, I've got some time, happy to go and help. We're just really lucky that we've got jobs. We're lucky that we're healthy. We're just going to go out and volunteer as either drivers or packers. And those food parcels that, you know, people who are self-isolating because of COVID, people who are just unable to access food banks, were, you know, serviced by genuinely good people who happen to work at PwC. And that has sort of grown over the last few months. I think from, was it August time, maybe, I think around then, that the transition came from the council to the bread and butter thing. And it's just continued, and people genuinely are just continuing. Like, we sent out another volunteer form recently and 80 new people signed up. And they just,
wow.
Yeah, they just constantly amaze us that they just keep coming forward and saying, you know what, we'll give up time, whether it's a Saturday, a Sunday, you know, we're going to come, we're going to pack, we're going to volunteer. And what has PwC got out of it? I think the only thing is each individual who's taken part has made a tangible contribution to their local community. The general, you know, feel good factor within the firm, whenever we talk about the volunteering that's happened, and some of the stories of the people you meet on the doorsteps, the other people like Pip, like Mark, like Fiona, who's also, you know, they're just inspirational people who work on things like this, servicing our local community, often in the background. And the fact that we got to help out is just, you know, it's not something to be proud of. It's just something that we're really happy to have done.
And do you think long term, once things return to normal, however that might look, do you think there'll be a lasting imprint from this, that people will think, I've enjoyed this way more than I thought I might, and this is something that I'm going to stick with? I
really hope so. I really hope so. And I think one of the key things that PwC, you know, advertises quite a lot internally and maybe externally doesn't get as much thing, because again, it's done for the right reasons, is that each individual at PwC gets a certain number of hours that they can go and commit to any kind of charitable work that they want to. If it's organised by PwC, fantastic. But I do some other work, you know, outside of PwC with the youth group and a few other things, and sometimes that clashes with my work. But I know that PwC have allocated X number of hours for me to go and, you know, volunteer that time in the local community. And I think what this has shown is that more and more people have become aware of that within this firm, at least, and I can't really speak for wider than that, if I'm being honest, but at least within PwC, I know much more people are aware of it, and many more people are thinking of new ways in which they can, you know, harness that time that they have and use it for the betterment of their local communities.
And I would imagine as a result, you have more sort of well-rounded, empathetic colleagues to work with.
I believe it would be impossible not to come back more well-rounded and empathetic after, you know, some of the stories and the cases that you know, the people that we work with. You were talking earlier, you know, we all giggle a little bit when we say, oh, people are, you know, embarrassed about coming in, or people are, you know, there's a queue outside and everyone. I mean, that's, you know, we should be embarrassed that there are people in our society who have to queue up to get food. And that's, you know, seeing that, and the fact that I have been employed since April throughout this pandemic is an actual privilege, as compared to so many other people who haven't had that, members of my own family. And you know, that's that bigger or wider worldview hopefully is something that will have a lasting impression on people and make people just, you know, exactly that word you use, more empathetic towards people who have to deal with life's, you know, small choices of, do I have food today or not?
The last year has taught us that actually it's just potluck, isn't it? The industry that you're in, the impact that the virus itself has on you if you're unlucky enough to catch it, is it just seems to be completely potluck. So you have to count your blessings, don't you? And Kate, I just want to bring you in briefly before we go back to Mark for the a summary of the impact report. What would you say to other organisations like Kellogg's who perhaps do have a surplus but want to take the easy way out? How would you encourage them to take part in something like the bread and butter thing?
I mean, I would say just have the conversation with Mark. Go and see for yourself what they do. I volunteered with Mark a few times, and that's all you need to do is just to see the difference you can make with really good food. It's not waste, and you know, go see for yourselves basically, and you'll see the difference it makes, and then you'll want to do it. There's no other option then.
And Pip, would you agree with what Ghalib said, that actually it has an impact not just on the service users but also on the volunteers who give up their time?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's very rewarding for people, and like I said before, helps with socialising, mental health. So yeah.
And I would guess it's just a real sense of achievement as well.
Yeah, because you see how many people you're helping. Like I said, we pack bags in the main hall at the community centre, but then at the end, when you come out and see how many people are waiting, you feel good about yourself.
Some big questions though, Mark, as Ghalib sort of said, what does it say about us as a society that this is necessary, and how do you reflect on the past year and indeed where you go from here now?
Thanks for that small question, Nina. It's
in 8 minutes, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So yeah, it's not a sad reflection. I think for us, we can see that there are a number of organizations that rightly say that there ought to be a real laser focus on welfare reform and things like that. But can we actually wait for that to happen? Not really, because people are actually in need now and need support now. And there's not just people that are like our members are, they're stressed, they're stretched. Just one thing will knock them off the edge and suddenly they're in crisis and presenting at food banks. And we want to stop as many people doing that as possible. What can we do about it? Well, the whole purpose of bread and butter really is to try and make life more affordable. We don't just do that through food. Food's a really interesting place to start. So everything that we do starts with food. Why is that? Because it's a glue, it's a catalyst. It brings people together. We share meals and build friendships. It's a basic human right, access to food. But when you have a food access program like ours within all of the community projects, we work with all the hubs that actually build on that. Once they actually, so it's almost like a bit of retail theatre. We create footfall. We bring people to the community centres. We bring people in so that they can start to see the other services, build some friendships, reduce the loneliness, have a knit and natter session. All of these things that used to happen pre-COVID, some of them are starting to slowly come back, and it's fantastic to see, and I can't wait to see them all back. And some of the service providers are just aching to get back into the communities, because that face-to-face engagement is so important for everybody, particularly the communities we serve. If we go back far enough, we used to have friendly banks and energy companies, etc., on the high street in the communities. It's all gone. It's all online and it's all on the phone, and that really stresses a lot of our members, because they, maybe they don't want to answer the phone because they might have had one too many red letters. Maybe they've got learning difficulties and can't actually understand the language on a web form or a letter. That face-to-face engagement really is the key to building that community resilience in what we do. So I think, if anything, let's start by building more face-to-face interactions in communities as we come out of COVID.
And what have you learned from the impact report?
Wow. 2020 has been a really strange year for us. So what we've done with the impact report, and I'll give you some edited highlights in a minute, but the key learning for us is that people are feeling less lonely, people are saving more money, and people are eating more healthy and cooking more healthy food at home, which is brilliant to see. It's still a sad fact of life that members are still skipping meals. It's a sad fact of life that a lot of the savings that they're being spent on energy bills. But if we can start to address some of the poverty premiums around things such as energy, that would be a great next step. So shall I share my screen and have a look at some of the stuff that we've been doing?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay. So hopefully you can all see that. And so what we're going to talk about basically is the highlights of 2020 and some kind of plans for 21. So Bread and Butter is a community-led charity. People like Pip are the bread and butter of what we do. We couldn't do this without Pip. She's fantastic, as are all of our volunteers. Ghalib knows the way that the corporates engage, as does Kate, but most of what we do is within the community, and to bring people like Ghalib and Kate into the communities that we serve is a really interesting way of raising awareness of some of the issues that those communities face. And what we do is provide a food club. So a typical food offer for us is a nominal fee of $7.50 for 3 bags of food, 1 of fruit and veg, 1 of chilled or frozen food, and 1 of cupboard goods like bread and cereal, etc. And there's normally 35, 40 quid worth of food within there. The way we can achieve that is what Kate was relating to earlier. We unlock surplus food and we attract food to us from the food industry. So we don't pay necessarily for that food. Sometimes we do if some people need cost neutral options, but it's not what I would say a commercial transaction. So typically our members have got 3 to 4 people at home. So we're looking at families of 3 to 5 people. And by the end of 2020, we were redistributing roughly 250,000 meals a week. And that's with about 400 volunteers a week. So it's amazing what we're doing. We're in Greater Manchester and the Northeast at the moment. And I think all credit to all of the volunteers and the Bread and Butter team. Not a single day and not a single delivery was missed throughout 2020. No matter what chaos went on, everything was still ticking along. So our survey on our social impact is based on questionnaires that we send out to our members. About 1/3 of our members responded and they reflect the lives and the impacts around the communities that we serve. So what are those highlights looking like? Well, typically our members are of working age between 25 and 64. You can see from that also from a diversity perspective. Typically in the UK, there's 83% of people present as white British. We're not bad on our diversity figures. And the employment status of our members, half of them work, but sadly, it's the majority of people in work or part-time work or 0 hours contract. So you can see that really our members are really struggling to get by. As for the impact itself, the highlights, what you can see, 43% of our members feel worse off because of COVID. It's not a surprise to anyone. It's just, let's start with the low lights. Everybody can see, I think it's worth saying that the worse off have been affected the worst. But community and loneliness have really been the heart of what Bread and Butter do. And what you can see from that is 2/3 of people feel less lonely by engaging with Bread and Butter. Now, a lot of health experts would tell you that loneliness is as dangerous as smoking. So that's a brilliant kind of health impact that we're creating there. And talking about the community resilience, if we can get more people in communities engaging more centrally, then we can provide more services and build more resilience into those communities. So the more people feel engaged, the better. As for people's diets, over 77% of people are cooking more healthily, eating more fruit and veg. That's got to have some long-term effects for people as well, which is brilliant. But the brass tacks of it is, our members tell us every week that they engage with us, they save about $26.50 a week on their food budgets. So that equates to us to quite a big stat. So in 2020 alone, in 2020 alone, we saved our members over 2 million quid.
Wow. Which
is brilliant. And not only do we want to say that's quite humbling, but also we also get really interested in where they spend that money. So what we like to do is ask them how they spend that money. Historically, we've asked every year, sadly, it's been the same, that more of the savings are spent on energy bills. But I think the saddest reflection this year is that more people are paying off loans than are buying more stuff for their kids. Historically, for the past 4 or 5 years, number 2 has always been buying more stuff for the kids, but this year it's paying off loans. And I don't know whether that's a COVID consequence, and we're just going to have to keep an eye on that. As for next year, more of the same. We want more hubs. We're developing more hubs. We've already committed to 21 new hubs in 2021. So we had 36 at the end of 2020. We've already opened 8 more, and the 21 is just the ones that we've already committed to. To do that, we need to grow our supply base. Our supply base is all of the food sector, and we do that by face-to-face engagement, which is something that, thank God, we can do again very soon, because it's really hard to actually engage in such things online, because we like to work out mentoring programs and build our mentoring programs and create consultancy services that provide working ways of operating to unlock more food and promote up the food waste hierarchy. And gleaning. What is gleaning? Well, it's rescuing crops out of fields that would otherwise go to waste, and that will improve our fruit and veg. So we're going to do more gleaning in 2021. And last but not least, we're going to develop more regions. Now, I can't tell you much about that because we're talking to people about it at the moment. There's nothing concrete, but we will have more regions in 21. Rattled through that for you, Nina.
Yeah, get in touch. hello@breadandbutterthing.org. Twitter is @Team TBBT and Instagram @Team TBBT and LinkedIn, the Bread and Butter Thing. And your website is brilliant, isn't it? It's a really good explanation, and there's a little video on there that sort of takes takes you by the hand and leads you through exactly how it all works, which brings me back to what I said at the beginning, which is, you know, the great appeal of this is that it's extraordinarily simple, isn't it? It's joining up lots of things that need to happen and should be happening more widely. So congratulations on a brilliant year to everyone that involved, and looks like 2021 is going to be really exciting.
Indeed.
So should we let everyone get back to their afternoons now?
I think that would be good. Yes. Thank you, everybody.
And enjoy the